Right. Looks like it's 7:02. I believe we have enough to get started. So let me pull up the agenda. We're going to see how capable I am to juggle things. All right, so the time is 7:02, and I am going to bring the November 10th meeting of ANC 1A to order. We generally start with community announcements. So what we will do is if any of commissioners who are on the meeting tonight have something to announce, this would be the time. And following that, if there are community members who are attendees on the Zoom call, it looks like, in looking at that, it looks like Commissioner Wade has joined us. Great. That following commissioners, we will open it up to attendees. So if you are an attendee, if you can raise your hand or hit *9, we will know that you are interested in talking. So starting with commissioners, do we have any announcements? Commissioner Bonneau?
I do. Dottie.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, you said Commissioner, you can go down the list, that's okay.
Okay, we'll do Commissioner Bonneau and then Commissioner Wade.
Thank you. Yes, just wanted to announce that this Sunday at 11 a.m. will be the monthly cleanup for 1A01. So we are going to be meeting at Spring Prairie Triangle. So that's the 1500 block of Spring Place, and would love to have people join. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonneau. Commissioner Wade.
Yes, I'd just like to announce that Project Give Back is holding its annual Thanksgiving box distribution on Saturday, November 21st at the Columbia Heights Education Center. And for those who have signed up to receive boxes, they need to show up there between 10 and 12, I believe, is the time they had for you. And if there are any who need maybe 1 or 2 boxes, I might be able to get additional, but the list has been pretty much filled because they've been working with community organizations and our ANC commission pretty much. So, but if you need 1 or 2 boxes, I think we can accommodate that, but we can't accommodate like 10, 20 boxes more. Just don't have it this year.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Love Wade. I will say that I've signed up to volunteer again this year. I enjoyed it enough last year. And following their presentation at our last meeting, I was able to give them names for a number of families that they were able to accommodate. So it's a wonderful program, and I'm glad that we're supporting them again this year.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ray, I see you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I unfortunately have some sad news to report. There was a murder in my SMD in the last week. Unfortunately, Jamal Crockett was killed at around 4 o'clock in the morning on the 600 block of Lamont Street. So the neighbors, of course, over there have been checking their cameras, but unfortunately, given the hour, there haven't been many leads so far, but it is certainly sad to know that someone stabbed someone else in the middle of the night and then left them to die on the sidewalk. So, you know, my heart goes out to this poor man and his family and loved ones. And if anybody has any information about the 600 block, I believe it was last Friday, you know, please let MPD know. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Ray. Are there any other announcements from commissioners? Commissioner Rybarczyk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. A few things I want to plug. I know tonight we'll discuss the Move DC plan. That is open for public comment. They have an online survey as well as online electronic maps that you can leave comments on. So I'll be sending out another one of our ANC newsletters with those links. I know we sent the reminder just with the meeting links this evening. I also want to flag, we received a message about DPR's parks surveys that are going on for planning for the future of DPR. That's another thing that I'll make sure to send out in the newsletter. They're taking feedback on how we use our public spaces. And then also, many people are probably aware that there was a shooting yesterday morning at 9:30 in the morning at the 14th and Irving Plaza right in front of the Metro. I know I had a really helpful conversation with Ward 1 Moker's Anthony Moore. You know, we haven't had a chance to work with him very closely, but he seemed extremely plugged in to what was going on. They believe that the weapon may have been tossed into the sewer after the shooting. So there was a lot of work going on our block yesterday. I'll be working with Anthony, and I'll make sure to loop in Commissioner Love Wade as well regarding some services and other work to bring to the plaza, because we know the Metro Plaza and MySMD, because we know that I've seen brawls and I've seen some other rough things going on in that area, and you know, we've sort of been at a loss of what to do, but Anthony had some really great ideas, so we'll keep you plugged in what's going on.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any announcements from members of the community? I do not see any. Okay. So with that, I guess we can move into committee reports. Is there an Education and Youth Committee report, Commissioner Miller?
Yes, we used our working committee meeting this past month to actually host a conversation on evictions, and most importantly, sort of looking forward at what we can expect with the existing moratorium, when that moratorium will be lifted, and some of the advocacy points that we need to look towards as well. We also, unfortunately, the night that we hosted that meeting, the details for the reopening plan were announced, which you'll see some of that conversation reflected in the letter I'm introducing later on. But I will be, this month's meeting, I will be hosting our DCPS liaison to talk about where we are now on the reopening plans and what we can expect for the remaining term 2, and of course, hopefully some long-term looks into term 3, and then of course, how we're going to better engage community, family, teachers, principals.
Okay.
Oh, and that meeting, sorry, that meeting is Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Moving on to public safety, Commissioner Bonneau.
Thank you. I apologize if you hear some background noise. Our phone ringing. We had a good meeting this month. Thank you to Chairman Bass and Samantha Davis from the Black Swan Academy. We had a very fruitful discussion, hearing from additional members from the Police Reform Commission, and just encourage them to continue to partner with us and identify ways for the community to review recommendations, provide feedback, and just generally be aware of the process and what's going on. So this was part 2 of that conversation. Those notes and recording are available if anyone's interested. We'll meet this month a week from Thursday, so I believe that's November 19th at 7. That will be our final meeting for 2020. And we're open to, any ideas that community members might want to discuss. Currently, we'll be using that time to map out next year and some of our short and long-term goals as a committee, and just try to get set up and organized for the year ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bonneau. Moving on to transportation, Commissioner Barczyk.
Hi all. Last month we had a great meeting with representatives from DDOT to discuss the 16th Street bus project. We learned a lot from that. I know we had some really great takeaways and action items. We were able to discuss some of the problem issues and learn more about what DDOT is going to do to address those. Our next meeting is actually the special meeting to discuss the crosstown multimodal transportation project on this coming Thursday, November 12th at 7 p.m. More details are on the Transportation Committee website on anc1a.org, as well as on our calendar. You will be able to call in, you can join the webinar, or if you need any of the materials printed out for a neighbor or someone who doesn't have access to the internet or Zoom, we're happy to get that to you. Just shoot us an email. So really looking forward to that discussion, and we're not planning on having a transportation committee meeting the week of Thanksgiving. So I hope everyone can take some rest. I know we have some volunteers who want to get plugged in for the coming year. So I'll be working through December to plot out some of our priorities for 2021. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And then moving to zoning, parks, and planning, Commissioner Ray.
Thank you. We did have a meeting where the commission mostly focused on how we plan to testify regarding the comp plan and the recommendations that we made to the Office of Planning and the ones that were accepted. So we've put that together, and a number of us are signed up to testify on Friday, probably about midday if we're lucky, depending on the timing. And then I will report that our next meeting, we are going to have another meeting for at least one more this year in preparation for next year. The cases are likely not going to come until the new commission is set, which means that I'll need to try and invite a few of our commissioner-elects and see if they want to hit the ground running. We have two cases on the same block next door to each other on the 500 block of Manor Place. And so we'll be seeing those plans and getting feedback from the community. And then I did want to report just this morning, in fact, the council did approve the street and alley closures that we have talked about in the past. The one regarding the Park Morton, and then the other one including the space behind the wine bar that we talked about, I think, a full year ago. So it was bundled. They were all bundled together. So those passed this morning. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Getting to the end of reports, we can now move on to presentations.
Excuse me,
Commissioner Lovewade.
Chairman Bates. Yes, I failed to mention one more item in the comment section. I did want to report that I had a meeting with PEPCO regarding the Capital Grid project on Harvard and Sherman Avenue. Of great concern to the residents within our single-member district is the proliferation of rodents as a result of them burrowing and digging up century-old rodent nests. So what they had done was they baited the immediate block that the building, PEPCO building, is in, which would mean the 1000 block of Harvard and Columbia Road, and the 2900 block of 11th and Sherman. And what I had to explain to them is that rats don't care anything about a square block boundary, and that when they disrupted their nest, that those rats migrated across the streets through the sewers and up through the alleys, and we've had such a huge uptick in rodents. So I did meet with Travoris, Culpepper, Mr. Badu from Clark Construction, and Stacy and Patrice from the Tina Boyd firm, who is the community outreach people. And they've assured us that they will reassess the impact of their digging on our community. I also express that although 1B is across the street and not within our commission boundaries, that rats don't know that either, and they don't care a darn about that. And then I would advise them most strongly to contact at least Mr. Turner at 1B to coordinate some kind of abatement program for those neighborhoods, you know, those abutting neighborhoods as well. So I'm looking, they indicated that they would be sending out inspectors and working with the community on the rat abatement. And I suggest that anyone who's having that kind of problem look to the developers in their block, because as the developers dig up and dig out the basements, they also are uprooting these century-old nests, and they're exploding in your neighborhoods. And I understand the part about the food service places and the increase in rodents because of that and a lot of the outdoor dining, but our commission has no retail. It has no food service outlets or anything like that. So this is mostly coming in most neighborhoods from when developers are digging out the structures. So I would suggest to all of you, when you notice these developments in your neighborhoods, that you approach them about a rodent abatement plan, and that we as a commission, when we grant these variances, that we insist on a rodent abatement plan as a part of our approval of the process, as well as for the ABC licenses. We've got to include rodent abatement, because if we don't, our cities are being overtaken. I'm absolutely afraid to even go into my garage after 48 years because the rodent population is so bad out there. And that's that.
Thank you, Commissioner Wade. Moving on to presentations, it looks like our first one is from Julie Lawson, but I do not see that she has joined us yet. Oh, I see that she is here right now. Talk about perfect timing. So we will move to Julie Lawson from I believe it's the Mayor's Office of Clean City.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your very timely email. I had a different ANC that we were on calendar for tonight. And I was listening in on that one. And I had you guys on a calendar for a different night. Anyway, I'm really happy. I know a bunch of you already, and I'm really happy to be here tonight with you guys. We spent half our day in Parkview today working on this project. If you're not familiar with the office, we are the mayor's advisor on community engagement and policy on litter, and also rats and pet waste and other public realm issues. We're very popular in ANC meetings. We are really excited to be doing a project right now in partnership with the US EPA to test whether we can reduce neighborhood litter by improving household trash disposal. I don't know if it's possible to turn on my video because I can show you a visual of it, but we are basically distributing 8,000 stickers to residents in 4 neighborhoods. We're looking at neighborhoods that are very dense single family homes, because we're looking to evaluate on a DPW service level, not apartment level. So what we're doing is just going door to door and distributing stickers that talk about making sure you don't overflow your can. Don't put your trash out really, really in a head of collection where the rats can get to it. Make sure your trash is bagged so it doesn't spill out all over the place. And calling 311 if you need a can repair or replacement. There's additional information on our website that we drive people to. The ask is that people put the sticker on the can so that every week they are reminded about all this proper disposal. So we did 850 homes today in Petworth and Parkview. And we've got another 1,150 to go. We'll be doing that on Friday and again next week. As I mentioned, there's information on our website, which is cleancity.dc.gov. There's also, we'll be doing some social media about it. And this is in partnership with Department of Energy and Environment and Department of Public Works. And we are also going to be looking to do focus groups in December to understand, did this messaging work? US EPA sponsored this whole project, and they want to see if this is successful in reducing the amount of litter in our neighborhoods. They can either make it citywide here, they can also take it to other cities around the country. So this is really an evaluation to understand if this can work. We have been studying the neighborhoods for 12 weeks already on litter levels in alleys, sort of undercover. And we will continue to do another 10 to 12 weeks of observation after the stickers are out to see if anything changes. We'll also be looking at 311 data for rats, can replacement, sanitation enforcement, and other issues that have come up. So this is a really exciting project that we're doing. And we also would really welcome any help from any commissioners or residents that live in the area who want to help us get these stickers pushed out to the community. And that is my presentation.
Thanks, Julie.
May I answer?
Yeah, I'll let you have the first question, Dottie.
Okay, I'm sorry I can't see you guys, so I have to just chime
I
in
know.
so that you know I'm here. I was asking about the extension of the survey into the Columbia Heights neighborhood. I don't know if you heard my comments prior to you coming online, but my great concerns was with the rodent population explosion in our neighborhood that's been based primarily on the excavation of the Pepco building station at Sherman and Harvard.
Okay.
So
rodents. Okay, so I'm happy to work with. I assume this has been reported to the Vector Control Office at DC Health.
right, I've my neighbors and I are constantly making 311 calls about it, and I don't want to tie up too much of the time of the commission because I already spoke for 5 minutes on this issue, but I'll be happy to talk to you about what I've done in relationship with Pepco and working with them in their efforts to abate the rodent problem created by their excavations. But we know it's also from developers who are digging up as well. So if you could give me a call, or I could give you a call.
Sure. If you want to give me a call, my work cell phone is 202-802-6225.
Okay, we'll talk later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Commissioner Ray.
So Director Lawson, my only question is, since you spent so much time in the Parkview alleys at this point, how do we rank in terms of our litter issues?
So I will say that it has been very helpful to talk to residents who say that they have these massive litter issues, and we have established a really consistent metric of a 1 to 4 scale, of 1 being like, if you went out and you spent 5 minutes picking up your block, you'd be done, and 4 being like, oh my God, call the National Guard. And so it's helpful because some residents are like, this is the worst. And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of a 2. And they like, I don't know, it gives them some kind of appreciation that we've actually measured this. And this metric has been used in, DC has been using it for a while, and then Baltimore, we used it, and then some other cities have used the same scale, 1 to 4. So I will say that I notice a big difference. I'm the one who observes the Petworth Parkview route every week. That there is a difference when we switch from the once a week collection to the twice a week collection boundary. The twice a week collection area does not seem to keep up when there are holiday slides. Those small cans can't absorb that extra day. So I will just leave it there. We have lots of other observations about recycling cans being the bigger problem. A lot of bulk and illegal dumping. And while you have people like myself walking your alleys, I'm not putting in I'm not escalating the dumping or anything because this is supposed to be science. And I'm trying very hard to put that aside, that need to solve all your problems aside. But
Thank
I
you.
will, so you have some alleys that I put at 3 and 4, and you have a lot of alleys that I put at 1 and 2.
Julie, I have a question for you, which I think you're the right person to, I think this is the right time to bring it up, but it's a little outside the scope of your trash study, or maybe it is. I am actually somebody who literally lives on the border of the once a week, twice a week trash collection. So I get to see when things don't work. But one thing I've observed over the years, and I have reported this to DPW, and there does not seem to be a solution, is when formerly single-family house is converted into more than 2 units, and sometimes is no longer serviced by DPW. The amount of trash that is produced is not, it depends on who's there, but for instance, the public litter cans tend to get used by properties that formerly didn't produce as much trash, but now are now producing 3 times as much trash, and they don't have DPW service. Residents just walk it across the street and put it in the public litter can. And after once or twice, they get smart enough not to put their address in it. And so that's feeding the rats, and that's overflowing. And DPW does a really horrible job of emptying those, leaving almost as much trash on the street as was in the trash can when they cleaned it.
Yes,
How do we solve that?
You're right. There are problems with knowing when a property has shifted from DPW service to private collection. 70% of DC's trash is collected by private haulers, which is a big number, I think, for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. We also know, and we even see this in impoverished neighborhoods where people can't afford the rent, so they pack as many people as they can into a house, and then people produce trash. And so then they are producing all this trash that doesn't fit into the bags and the cans, because you've got 7 or 8 people in a 3-bedroom house. So we see that citywide in lots of different contexts. We're still working on solving that. And I think some of it is just getting I think the DPW collection crews really are doing the best that they can, often are doing the best that they can with the team that they've got and the resources they've got, but understanding some of the changing dynamics in some of our neighborhoods. It's a big ship to turn. And so continuing to bring this up, you can continue to bring it up with me. I have to report all this stuff up higher above myself. And so that will help. I can't necessarily fix it today, but I can try to help turn the policy.
No, I appreciate that. It would be nice to have an ally working on this collaboratively for the eventuality of solving some of it. Because the other thing I'll say with the public litter cans is they seem to be more heavily used now that so many people are working remotely, and because people aren't leaving during the day, and now they're becoming they seem to be becoming more of a magnet for bulk trash with people clean. So
there's a couple of things that we've seen is that residential trash and public litter can trash has gone way up because the residential areas have a higher population during the day. Rat numbers reflect that as well. And at the same time, DPW's staffing capacity is down by about 50% because of their own distancing and safety concerns among their staff. So it's been a big pressure on them
Okay.
at kind of the wrong time for all of the other shifts that have happened. But yes, I mean, everyone in DC government leadership is aware of it and working to try to bolster DPW's capacity as quickly as they can.
Fair enough. Commissioner Clock.
Hi, Director. Commissioner Cassignon isn't on tonight, but she did have I think an 8-year-old constituent who was asking why we don't have more recycling cans in the area and maybe more trash cans. And perhaps, and I would always thought about this coming from New York, maybe some kind of redemption program to help keep some of the recyclables out of the trash and out of the public cans. If any thoughts on recycling being more citywide on the streets?
As the mom of a 9-year-old constituent, I love questions from 8-year-old constituents. So I'm not sure if the constituent means household recycling or public space recycling. We haven't figured out public space recycling because the contamination is so bad that it's basically so much mixed in trash that it has to all be thrown away anyway. And so it just duplicates the effort of emptying all those cans.
It was public space, and I think the constituent also mentioned about stopping global climate change. That was kind of the main reason.
Yeah, no, I understand that. We're gonna fix all these problems tonight. And then regarding bottle deposit or redemption program, the mayor and her team have been looking for a while at different models that might work for capturing specifically the plastic bottle litter that is the biggest. 60% of the trash pulled out of the Anacostia River trash traps right now is plastic bottle litter. And what is the best method to deal with that without necessarily reinventing our entire recycling system for the whole city? So I think there are a bunch of ideas out on the table right now, and we're working to see which one the mayor would support moving forward.
Thank you very much.
I have one final question.
Sure, Commissioner.
I had asked about the extending the sticker program down into Columbia Heights. You said you had 1,500 or 1,100 more yet to do. Would we be in that group, or is it just Petworth Parkview right now?
I'd have to check our map. Basically, so we're doing, like I said, 4 neighborhoods, the most dense census tracts that we could find of single family homes. So our turf for this part of the city, so we're doing Brightwood and a little bit of their side of Petworth, your side of Petworth and Parkview, and a little bit of Columbia Heights, and then Trinidad and Rosedale Kingman Park. Your turf within your area, I think, is going to go as far west as 14th Street on the northern end. But again, like, because we're looking at the single family homes, not the apartments or condos or businesses. Because
Right.
The other thing is that we have made the files are available for any neighborhood group or ANC that wants to just make the stickers and distribute them themselves. Those are available for free if you wanted to pay for that. And I will say that the EPA contract got these 8,000 stickers for about $1,500. So it's not a really overbearing expense if you wanted to do it. It's just, it's outside of the current study project for us. And
Okay.
DPW is very interested in, once we figured out if the messaging was effective, we may make some revisions, but DPW is already very interested in expanding this citywide. They asked us to print a bunch more stickers just for them to have. And I said, I don't control the EPA budget. Sorry. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Director. I see that we do have one comment that was submitted about what about expanding composting initiatives? And I just wanted to share that out.
Yeah, the district has a zero waste goal of getting to 80% waste diversion by 2030. And obviously food waste composting is a big part of that. DPW's position right now is to create an anaerobic digester, which would take in all of our food waste and yard waste and use it to create energy. So it's not exactly compost, but it is effectively the same diversion of that material into not the landfill or incinerator. What we are doing right now and why it's important to put, we are going to be, the leaf collection has kind of shifted back and forth a bit this season. And right now it is asking us all to rake our leaves to the curb for collection, which started this week for the vacuum trucks. That is all going to be composted. If you do choose to bag your leaves, make sure that you bag them in paper bags because that allows them to be composted. If you put them in paper bags, they'll be used as trash. So that's the first step. We've been able to keep our farmers market food waste drop-offs going through the pandemic. Pumpkin drop-off is going on right now. And that's always a big participation, huge numbers of pumpkins getting composted. So go check out the farm. You've got the drop off at the Columbia Heights Market on Saturdays, I think. There is also a new program at Office of Waste Diversion. If you take a training on home composting and you purchase composting equipment for your home, you can get a rebate on that equipment purchase. So if you wanted to get a tumbler that might cost $125, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but you get like $50 back from the city. And it's the new fiscal year, so that program is fully funded right now. So you can go sign up for home composting trainings at zerowaste.dc.gov.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Commissioner Bunnell, we'll let you have the final question before we move on to the next presentation.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank the Office of Clean City and put in 2 plugs for my fellow commissioners and neighbors. So one, I mentioned earlier, our monthly cleanup coming up on Sunday. Anyone can organize a cleanup and the Office of Clean City will drop off supplies like contactless drop off. So if you're so inspired, definitely encourage folks to do that. And then the other is there was mention about if you like trash cans that have holes in them from rats, just a reminder that those can be replaced for free. I've helped some residents kind of go through the 311 process there, but definitely reach out to your commissioner if you need help with that. And so that's different than purchasing a new can in the typical way. So thank you for both of those.
Thank you, Commissioner. Also, I know I said we've been moving on, but we did have one final question that came in, and since you're here, I want to make sure we got it. And that the question was, what about education? What does the educational component look like? It says a lot of people don't know much about recycling and how to do it properly.
Yeah, so about recycling, so again, I would recommend going to zerowaste.dc.gov. You should have, if you are in a home serviced by DPW, you should have gotten a mailer about a month ago reminding you of what materials are recyclable. There is another reminder coming out soon. There it is.
There it is.
Thank you. You will also get another reminder about not bagging materials in your recycling because bags and plastic film will gum up the machinery and slow a lot of things down and could cause your recyclables that you've so carefully washed out and saved and sorted to be thrown away. But yes, you can always find that information on what's recyclable at zerowaste.dc.gov. I do want to also point out that campaign signs have to come down within 30 days after the election. And that includes, you guys, you candidates, you won or you didn't win, you didn't run again. But it doesn't just have to be the campaigns themselves. Anyone can take those signs down. If you really want to, as a candidate, want to save your signs for your next ambitious effort, go get them now, because anyone can take them down. But those, you have 30 days and then they are considered illegal signs and can be subject to fines. So that's my last plug on our
Okay.
piece.
Thank you so much, Director. We feel free to come back anytime. I would invite you to come back when you have some data from this study, so we have a better understanding of the trash patterns and what we can do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We expect to be done. We'll be done with our part in January, and then EPA has a contractor on board to do all of the analysis, and we'll be happy to share all of our results after that. And yes, I'm always happy to come back. And if anybody wants to volunteer for distribution, I know Commissioner Ray is joining us on Friday, and we would love any others to help, because I've walked 30 miles in the last 2 days and I don't really want to keep that pace up. So thank you guys for having me tonight. I'm always happy to come back.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now move on to the next item on our agenda, which was a presentation by Emily Paul from the Community Oversight of Surveillance Coalition. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, thank you. Also, if it's possible, Emma Rafaela, who's also on this call, was going to do part of the presentation with me. If it's possible to make Emma a presenter as well.
That should
I'm
be
going
possible.
to share slides.
Welcome, Emma.
Hi, thanks for your time.
Okay, I'll kick us off. Hi, my name is Emily Paul. Thank you for having us here to talk about the Community Oversight of Surveillance in DC Coalition. Emma, do you want to just quickly say a hello as well?
Sure. And so the coalition is made up of a number of different groups. I'm a volunteer with Jews United for Justice, which you may have heard about, and there's all the groups that are involved.
Yeah, and I might not have said this, but I'm at Upturn, which is a nonprofit that works on tech and social justice issues in DC. So I'm going to start with a story. We're here talking about surveillance, which doesn't always get talked about in the very real, just human impacts. So this is Robert Williams, a Black man who lives in Detroit. Last summer, he was driving home from work. He got a phone call from the Detroit Police Department saying that there was a warrant out for his arrest. He had no idea what they were talking about, and he thought maybe it was just a scam phone call or something. He gets home, pulls into his driveway. The police are there. His wife and young kids are there. Nobody knows what is going on. They arrest him, take him down to the station, and start questioning him and saying that he had stolen watches from this very expensive watch store in Detroit. And again, he did not know what they were talking about. They eventually pulled out a grainy surveillance photo and said, here, this was you committing this theft. And he takes one look at it and is like, that's not me. In a rare occurrence for this kind of situation, the detectives immediately said, oh yeah, I guess the computer got it wrong. And that led to Robert finding out that face recognition software had been used to identify him in this low quality, grainy surveillance photos from the watch store, and that was the basis for his arrest. And this was an unusual story because they actually, the police actually acknowledged that they had used this software as the basis for the arrest. So there's many other cases where we don't know that. And this all happened in Detroit, but MPD uses face recognition for the same purposes. So for investigative purposes. And also in DC just last week, this was with US Park Police, but as you may have heard, a protester was identified using face recognition software used to analyze images from social media. So right now in DC, as I mentioned, DC police use face recognition for investigations and have access to images from thousands of cameras across CCTV and the neighborhood cameras that MPD has that are mobile, as well as the network of thousands of private security cameras, Ring and Nest cameras, which this map is showing where those are located. So the darker blue spots are where there are upwards, 300 or 400 cameras in those areas. So I'm going to turn it over to Emma in a moment, but basically in the Cost DC Coalition, we all can agree on wanting our communities to be safe, wanting to feel safe. And what we're trying to do is have a more robust conversation about whether surveillance technology is the right way to do that, and how we can actually, have solutions for safety that keep us all safe and that aren't kind of reaching for quick technology solutions or using technology in ways that doesn't acknowledge the harms that can arise from their use.
Yeah, and so on that note, I think, again, recognizing that there are many different approaches to achieving safety, to a lot of technology companies and the police also tend to claim that these sorts of surveillance technologies are sort of guaranteed to make communities safer. But as you heard from the example that Emily gave, this doesn't always work because there are numerous inaccuracies. In one NIST study that was conducted, they found that folks with darker skin colors, like of East African descent, tended to have 100 times the false positive rate as like the baseline. So that's a problem, particularly as it starts to coincide with other systemic inequities that we already see in the criminal justice system. And then sort of kind of zooming out in a broader sense, as Emily mentioned, and as you saw on the map, there are quite a number of different surveillance technologies that might be employed. DC has so many different law enforcement personnel as well, being able to access and implement different technology solutions for the purposes of surveillance. And facial recognition is not the only one, but I think it's certainly an easier example or touch point of how invasive these technologies can be. In particular with facial recognition and video surveillance, there is a huge lack of transparency, both like where these are located, first of all, and exactly how some of the imagery is getting used, and also what's being done with like private data of your image. I think that should be a concern for folks, regardless of whether you have the cameras or not, being able to understand what exactly is being done with the data. And there's a lot also between both private companies that sell these cameras and the police. I think that's not very clear to communities when these are put within neighborhoods. And in addition to facial recognition, another technology to point out that is also of concern to the coalition are stingrays, which are sort of the short form nickname for cell site simulators. And those are primarily designed to basically mimic cell phone tower signals to find suspects' location, but it doesn't necessarily just pinpoint the suspect's cell phone, and it also gathers a lot of other information about phones of other bystanders. And again, how exactly that information is sort of stored and used or otherwise processed is not very clear. So bottom line, what our coalition is really focused on, again, it's sort of in the name, community oversight of surveillance. And there has been a lot of different legislation kind of at the city level already introduced. The map that you're seeing right now on this presentation shows the number of different jurisdictions that have passed CCOPS legislation, which, if I recall correctly, is community
community control over police surveillance, I believe, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
community
it's-
control over police surveillance, if got that right. So that's been implemented in a number of places. And what we're hoping to do, both through this presentation and generally raising awareness, is to try pushing for that as well in Washington, D.C. Again, we have some of the sort of highest law enforcement presence per capita in the population. And I think it's important to recognize also where there have been different moratoria or other bans on some of this technology, because we recognize that it's not perfect. And until we get to the point where it is much more refined, and also we have a conversation with communities and law enforcement about what the correct approach is, we shouldn't be implementing technologies that can lead to innocent people being jailed or otherwise harmed by these technologies.
Thanks, Emma. I'll just wrap up with what we're here asking for, or how both our commissioners and other community members can get involved. So we do have, as Emma mentioned, legislation, which we've been focusing on law enforcement, but it's actually about having transparency and a public process with council approval for any government agency that's using surveillance technology. So it's not banning any particular technologies, it's creating a process where we can discuss and have community input on whether those technologies are used at all, and if they are used, how they are used. So what we're asking for from the commissioners is to introduce a resolution, and we're reaching out to other ANCs that asks DC Council to hold a hearing on this issue of surveillance and on community oversight of surveillance, and also to support this legislation, so that together we can have more mechanisms for transparency and community conversations about surveillance tech. And then the other thing I'll add is, for anyone who is here attending this meeting, we have a petition that just went live, which you can see at the URL for our coalition, which is takecontroldc.org. Control is CTRL/act. And then also we'll be hosting a virtual town hall December 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. So that will be a place for community members to come learn more about the legislation, share stories of your experiences of surveillance, your perspectives on these issues, and what we want to see from council. So that's what we have for you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from commissioners? Okay, well, I know I did see we got one question in from an attendee, and I think you may have answered some of this, but the way it was phrased, question for Emily: what laws would need to be changed, DC and/or federal, to prevent the use of doorbell security cameras to identify private individuals alleged to have done wrong? With home or business owners' consent, can MPD use any footage to go question and/or arrest any suspect?
So what I will say in terms of our legislation is that the kinds of data sharing agreements that MPD has through the camera rebate program would go through this process that the legislation creates, which is that there is the MPD would have to put forth a proposal of what data they want to use, how they're going to use it, and there'd be a public hearing and council would vote on that. So it could be approved or not. So that would be one way that it might be stopped if the community of council voted that way. I think it's a longer question to get into, like, what qualifies as significant evidence, to actually charge someone? Like, can that just be based on footage? As we see in that Detroit example, that does seem to happen, but I'm also not a lawyer. So I think that's about what I can answer in terms of how our legislation would affect that going forward. So I hope that helps at least answer some of the question. And then into the second question I see about, do the areas with high numbers of private cameras reflect the rates of crime? So that map that I showed is actually from a DCist article, and they were looking at, I think, both race and gentrification and how that aligned with the use of the cameras. So I think, and the person asked the question about paranoia or fear among populations using private cameras. I mean, in my personal view, yes, I do think that there is like the fact that Amazon both sells private cameras and delivers the packages that those private cameras are being bought to protect, and then shares the data with police. I think that there is some feeding off of people's fears, in my view. There's not like a coalition perspective on that per se, but I do think it is a question of how do those cameras actually keep us safer overall, or do they lead to arrest for petty things that actually doesn't make our community safer? Yeah, that's sort of my response to that.
Emily and Emma, thank you for presenting. I do think protecting our civil liberties is very important. I'm wondering too, the legislation that I haven't seen that you're discussing, would that I assume that would also apply to things like traffic cameras, speed cameras, things that measure pedestrian volumes, all of those sorts of things as well?
Yes, there is a definition of, what's considered surveillance technology, and it is technology that, whether it's the main purpose or not, that has the capacity to collect, individually identifiable data. So those things would go through some kind of process to be approved, and to be approved for which uses they are approved for. Because you can imagine, like, maybe we're okay as a community having cameras used for red light ticketing or speeding, but we don't want them to be used for tracking people's movements around the city, for example. Yeah.
That's a lot to take in your presentation. I really appreciate it. It sounds like a very serious issue of our private and our civil rights and liberties. I would like to have an opportunity to review the proposed legislation and see what we're really looking at, and have an opportunity to discuss it with you guys further. If you could consider coming back after we've had a chance to really look at it.
Yes, definitely. And I guess, I don't know if this is a good thing to talk about now or follow up on email in terms of following up, about the legislation, the draft legislation, and also about if any of you would be interested to introduce a resolution supporting the legislation and asking for a hearing. We have some, we'd be happy to talk about that and share some of the things we've drafted.
Yeah, I would say
Emily,
oh, go ahead.
sorry. Thank you both so much. I just put in the chat for panelists. So I actually at the beginning was saying we're looking for topics for our December Public Safety Committee meeting. So that might time out nicely if we want to follow up offline, and be happy to kind of hear your thoughts and sort of see what some of those key events are, to see if the broader Public Safety Committee members want to get involved as well. So my ANC email is in the chat there, and then I think we've connected before this meeting as well. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a great suggestion, and it would make a lot of sense for me to have this go to the Public Safety Committee to dig into it deeper and perhaps make a recommendation back to the full commission. And that's a good segue into the other question that's come up of how do people get plugged in beyond this, and is there value in connecting with council members now?
Yes, I would say so. Definitely signing the petition, joining the town hall, which is on December 9th. And I think, yes, if you want to start raising with your council members, concerns, personal experience, like just your communities, your neighborhood's perspectives on surveillance, and start having that conversation with your neighbors, and also letting your council members know that that's something that you're concerned about or wanting more, public process around. I think that makes sense. Definitely when the bill gets introduced, there will be more opportunities for that. But I think just letting people know that it's something that you're concerned about and thinking about is useful. Yeah.
Very good. Was there another question from? I'm not seeing one. Okay. Well, then, thank you so much for presenting this. It's a lot to take in, and I echo Commissioner Lloyd's statement that this is very, very important. So thank you for making us more aware of it, and we look forward to hearing more about it in our Public Safety Commission or committee. So thank you, Commissioner Bonneau, for bringing that up.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. The next presentation, I'm checking to see if we still have. I do not see a representative from Councilmember Nadeau's office, so we will move to Cynthia Tercios from the mayor's office.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
We sure can.
Perfect. Well, I'm so glad to be here with you all. I can't believe it's November, almost the end of 2020. I know it's been a long year, but for those who haven't heard from me before, my name is Cynthia Tercios. I'm the Ward 1 liaison from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, and my role is to primarily connect residents with various government services, help escalate any 311 service requests, as well as coordinate any community walks and help with any concerns in between. My contact information is Cynthia, CYNTHIA .Tercios, TURCIOS @dc.gov, and my phone number is 202-553-8032. And I'll just go ahead and share some general community updates as things change throughout the city. So I just want to, oh, thank you so much, Commissioner Bonneau. I always forget to put it in the chat. As many of you know, coronavirus.dc.gov continues to have the updated information on travel guidance as states get added or taken away as high-risk areas to travel at. So please continue to visit coronavirus.dc.gov for those updates. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and download DC Can COVID if you have an Android. And if you have an iPhone, there are certain steps you have to take to go into your notification settings to allow the DC Can app to let you know if you've been exposed to COVID-19 based on the data that's inputted by neighbors around you. For more information on how to download the app, go ahead and visit coronavirus.dc.gov. And following up from last week's meeting, I do have updates on the DPW leaf collection, and I'll go ahead and send you all that pamphlet as well. I just got the e-pamphlet. I'm sorry, I was out of the office for a bit, but I'll go ahead and send that tonight. But at this time, DC Department of Public Works has started their leaf collection as of yesterday. And the leaf collection process has changed a bit this year, but not too much. But something that did change that was previously said is now paper bags are no longer required for collection. So residents are asked to rake their leaves for collection to the curb or into the tree box in front of their residence to ease with a vacuum process. So there's a vacuum for leaves specifically that will be taking care of the removal of the leaves. So we just ask neighbors to go ahead and rake those. And if they're unable to do so, that's no problem at all. Just feel free to reach out and DPW can go ahead and work with you to coordinate a time to go ahead and take care of those leaves. But I'll go ahead and share the pamphlet with the ANC. But for more information, or if you all would like to view the pamphlet, please go ahead and visit dpw.dc.gov/service/leaf collection. Oh, thank you so much, Commissioner Bonneau. You have all the links tonight. And I want to go ahead and remind you all that we are still in a public health pandemic, so several fire stations throughout the city are offering free COVID-19 tests. No identification is required. They just ask that you now register on your mobile device ahead of time just to ease the process and make sure everything is forwarded to you completely once you get your results. Flu shots are also offered at specific sites throughout the city. So DC Health has partnered with CVS Pharmacy and Walgreens to provide flu shots at the public testing sites, but the individuals must be at least 12 years old. And CVS is offering these flu shots at 3 firehouses on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Engine 8, 30 and 33. And for more information on where those locations are, please go ahead and visit coronavirus.dc.gov. And those are my updates for today. Just want to go ahead and touch on something Commissioner Verberchak said. So I am working with Anthony Moore, who is the other Ward 1 Mokers, to conduct outreach, and we'll definitely be speaking with you more on how we can go ahead and provide resources to neighbors that may be hanging out at the platform triangle area at 14th and Irving, and just making sure that whether it's DBH or DHS are out there providing resources and anything in between that we can help with. Thank you all so much for having me, and let me know if you guys have any questions. I see your physical hand,
Yeah, Commissioner Ray.
Sorry. Thank you for coming tonight. In regard to the email that I sent you earlier this evening about the building that had stopped having trash pickup, I want to point out for your knowledge that it's all on private property. So I know that DPW is planning to visit and do what they can, but I'm afraid that the private property issue is going to be a hindrance. So I might need you to push this issue with DCRA as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and loop them in, but I'll also loop in DOH because it looks, at least from the picture, that because of the amount of trash that's there, and as we've been hearing tonight, that a lot of unwanted critters will probably be there because of the amount of trash. So I'll go ahead and loop in DOH to help with abatement, just in case there are any boroughs in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Cynthia or Ms. Tercios?
Cynthia's fine.
Yeah, I keep forgetting when you talk so frequently that you're just Cynthia. Are there questions from members of the community? Please put it in the Q&A or raise your hand. All right, not seeing anything, I'll say great to hear from you, Cynthia. Hope we see you in person soon. And
yeah, just let me know and I'm more than happy to stop by and chat with you in person at a social distance, of course.
Of course. All right, thank you. We can then move on to, let's see, moving into administrative matters. Commissioner Rybarczyk, can you take the roll?
Of course. And just before we do that, I will say our verification notice, which we are required by OANC to say that we noticed this on the listserv and newsletter and social media and website and calendar. So roll call. Commissioner Bonneau.
Present.
Commissioner Edmondson, not present. Commissioner Rybarczyk here. Commissioner Goldschmidt, not present. Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Commissioner Castagnon, not present. Commissioner Bass.
Present.
Commissioner Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Brown, not present. Commissioner Love-Wade.
Present.
And Commissioner Clock. Here.
You're on mute, Commissioner Clock.
Did it too quick.
Sorry. We have quorum.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Please review the agenda that's on our website, or I presume was distributed earlier. On the consent agenda, there's approval of prior minutes, reimbursement of communications expenses, and 16th Street playground renovation letter. And then we only have two issues on the official business tonight. Letter regarding safe reopening of DC schools and letter to DDOT regarding Move DC. If there's anything that needs to be amended, added, removed, this would be the time to mention it. Oh, perfect. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Actually, I think the only comment was to remove Ally's presentation.
Okay, that makes sense. She's not here.
So I move to approve the agenda with the modification to remove Alex from Councilmember Nadeau's office.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved in second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. As mentioned before, there are 3 items in the consent agenda. Approval of the prior minutes for October of 2020. Reimbursement of communications expenses to Commissioner Rybarczyk for the Zoom webinar invoices. And 16th Street Playground renovation letter of project support. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. We will now move into official business. The first item is the ANC 1A letter regarding safe reopening of district schools. Commissioner Miller, I believe this is your letter.
Great. And since we're rounding the end, I'll try to make this quick. I'm introducing a letter to the DCPS Chancellor, Dr. Louis Farabee, regarding the recent term 2 proposed reopening plans, the details of which were introduced at the mayor's press conference at the very end of October, leaving our principals and teachers with very little notice to implement, respond, or even prepare. And of course, everyone, including parents and families, were left with many unanswered concerns. Over the last several weeks, I've been part of many conversations with our teachers, with our families, with advocacy groups, and of course, having 2 children in a DCPS school myself, I have also experienced firsthand all of the stress, all of the uncertainty, and for no other better word, the chaos that has surrounded the reveal and implementation, or lack thereof, eventually the implementation of that. For those who have not been living this or following it very closely, one of the biggest challenges came from a lack of engagement on the part of DCPS, from the leadership, with those who know the most about our students' needs and how best to serve them, specifically our educators, our families, and even our youth service providers. There were many aspects of this plan that fell short. And to be honest, this page been many pages with many bullet points. But I have left a lot of that to those I feel are, is that my kid?
No.
It's Dottie.
Dottie, is that you?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I don't think it's mine, sorry. So there were many aspects of this plan that really fell short. So it could have been many pages. We could have had tons of bullet points. But what I've done is really left a lot of those to those I believe are best positioned to understand the needs, and really most important, the solutions that we need. And who have already clearly laid those out, namely our principals, who put out a very thorough and very thoughtful open letter, identifying the problem areas, but also proposing some very well thought out solutions. And of course, our teachers through the Washington Teachers Union. The main purpose of this particular letter is to acknowledge the failure on the part of DCPS to provide meaningful engagement across our key stakeholders. This was really a top-down, grass-top decision-making process where they looked for buy-in after the fact. It failed many, and most importantly, it really failed our kids. So again, the main purpose is to echo and lift up the voices of those who need to be centered in what that path forward looks like. And hopefully this letter is just articulating, again, what many have been saying across the city and almost unanimously. And just some key highlights. Yes, of course, principals, teachers, parents, as true partners in this decision-making process, but also having that meaningful engagement through outreach and communication that is language accessible, that's timely, and that's consistent across our schools and our communities. And another important aspect that really seemed to fall short in this plan is this need to look towards each of our schools and communities to customize that in-person opportunity and center it really on our most vulnerable students and those struggling the most with our distance learning. And of course, I've also included our out of school time providers as one of those stakeholders. It's a conversation I have been having with them. It's a conversation and an issue area that we as a commission have also supported continuously. Any questions?
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions for Commissioner Miller? Commissioner Bunnell?
Less of a question and more of a comment and just like a note of thanks. We've seen similar language come out from some of our elected officials in this area as well. And I just feel really strongly that we as a commission also go on record just with our displeasure at how this is all being handled. And I want to reiterate a point that Commissioner Miller raised earlier, which is about reaching communities in the modes and methods that are appropriate for each population. And so asking parents or caregivers to fill out a survey online makes a lot of assumptions. And that's one example of one of the failings. And so again, this doesn't specify like every issue where DCPS has fallen short, but I do think it proclaims pretty strongly how we feel. And I just want to thank you, Commissioner Miller, for putting it forward.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you naming that, especially, a lot of the advocacy groups that I work with really have done that hard work, and it's hard. It's really difficult to get to communities that aren't able to access the resources, that don't have the luxury of time. And, for many that, that the languages are not, that the communication is not in the language that they need it to be. And sometimes it's even, just having the visuals, as a parent, a lot of what DCPS produces with meal sites, with especially with COVID, have been in visual form. And we do have a lot of our community, or those in our community, who are not literate. And to be honest, I work better with visuals. So I include myself in that, but it's not in language that's accessible to many. And I will acknowledge that I have seen them working hard on that. But I've also seen our advocacy groups really work hard to meet those families and those stakeholders where they are, so that they can bring those voices into that conversation and lift them up. So I'm really proud to see that work being done.
Well, I'd like to echo that. I think you and the group you're working with have done an outstanding job as a caregiver and support for online students in my house now. I understand the difficulties. We all have a daunting task ahead of us, but I agree totally, Commissioner Miller, that there needed to have been and still needs to be much more community involvement and direction in this process. I know they're trying to find a model that has been successful nationally, but we're not a typical model that we can fit into. We usually are the models that, because of our particular dynamic. So I really support you, and I strongly encourage everyone else to contact your council members and the mayor and the school board and your chancellor to let them know that this plan that they've come up with is not sufficient. It doesn't address the real needs. That part about certain classes doing online and certain classes doing in-person schooling during the year is just too inequitable to even talk about right now. It's so inequitable. So a lot of work has to be done, but thank you for the amount of work that's already been done to put us on the right path.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I do, I think the points specifically about the inequity of the way that they've assigned the classes. I thought the principals really laid out that point, but then also countered it with how to do it better, which, I think, in our own role as commissioners, it's not just enough to yell and yell loudly. We also need to be able to show how those solutions can be, how we can get to those solutions so that we can ultimately serve and meet those needs. So I do think that the principals had a really great plan. If anybody has a minute, I've linked it into that letter to read through.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller, Bonneau, and Love-Wade. I know that you have a letter before us. Is there a motion?
Yes, and I'm not quite sure. I wasn't sure how to add this in, but it has a hearing coming up on the reopening plan, a date tentatively, or I'm not sure if it's actually, if I imagined it or if it was lumped in with other dates of December 2nd. But is there, in addition to making a motion that we approve this letter to send to Chancellor Farabee along with those identified to be copied, I would also like the commission's approval to represent the statements and spirit of this letter at that hearing.
What I would suggest is amending the document under the certification to just say, after providing sufficient notice for and with a quorum of 7, I think is here tonight, presented at its November 10th meeting. Advisory Neighborhood Commission 1A voted with yays, nays, and abstentions to adopt the above agreement, and authorize Commissioner Miller to speak on behalf of this resolution before the council.
Okay.
That's how I would do it. So I guess I made a motion. Dottie said it. I hope that's okay.
Is the motion for the letter from me, and then the?
Well, I think my motion is for that amendment to the letter. So we can vote twice. Okay. Once to the amendment and once to the letter.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
So the motion to amend the letter has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Now we can vote on the letter.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Love-Wade has moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Congratulations, the motion passes.
Everybody, I really appreciate it as both a commissioner, but also as a parent. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the second item on the agenda. Commissioner Rabarchuk, I believe this is yours, the letter to DDOT regarding the Move DC Transportation Priority Network.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep this brief. As I had shared earlier, right now, DDOT is updating its Move DC plan, which is its long-term transportation planning document for the foreseeable future. And there's a lot of weight behind this Move DC plan because recent legislation will tie where dollars and projects are going to be invested in our neighborhoods to the Move DC plan. In the letter, I didn't get into too much detail about the specific routes or specific recommendations, beyond saying generally that, you know, we've asked DDOT many times to look at our transportation system holistically. And that's something that, you know, the Move DC plan does do, and applaud them for that. I also point out some of the challenges that we've iterated before, that Ward 1 has unique challenges because we don't follow the L'Enfant plan, unlike other wards and other neighborhoods, and that many of our streets are smaller and don't line up, and there has to be trade-offs if we're wanting to have priority lanes and priority networks on them. So something I really hit on in this letter is what we're seeing right now. There's a real issue with how our curbside space and deliveries and pickups and freight affects transportation through our community. If DDOT really wants to spend the time and resources on designating certain streets as priority network lanes, we really need them to focus on how we are using our curbside space in a equitable and just a better way than what's happening right now. You know, we're seeing on 14th Street all the time, we're seeing private vehicles and commercial vehicles and government agency vehicles, you know, blocking what was supposed to be a transportation priority lane. And we recognize, and we had mentioned this to the agency beforehand, this is something they need to tackle, and unfortunately I don't think that's happened. So we're just reiterating to DDOT that they need to make that a priority. And I also point out later on the letter that right now Irving and Columbia, which are two of the more important transportation routes in our commission area, are designated as a transit priority network, as a freight priority network, and as a bicycle priority network. And as we all know, there's limited space on those streets, and we need to flag to them that those streets can't be everything for everyone, because
no way in hell can we allow that to happen. That's just absurd. When I saw that, you know, I did a volcano eruption in my head. As bad as our streets are now, to add a bike route, I mean, what the hell are they thinking? I mean, you can only put so much traffic on 2 streets. The entire crosstown traffic is on those 2 streets.
I don't put it in those exact words, but I do flag that it's one of the most important corridors in our neighborhood, and we need to be creative about how we're going to utilize other streets, because it's our primary east-west route, and it's also the primary route to the hospital, the Washington Hospital Center and the VA. So a lot of people rely on this. So you know, it's the very first steps in their public outreach process. You know, this is going to go on for the next year, and I'm sure longer than that, as this COVID has adjusted all of our timeframes. But I just wanted to make sure that we ping this and flag it for them before anything else moves on.
Yeah, Commissioner Ray.
I just wanted to make one point of clarification on the Irving and Columbia comment. It's not that the entire stretch of Irving and Columbia are all three throughout our entire ANC. It's that there are segments. There are segments. But just to be clear, I didn't want people to think or go to the map and expect to find that they're expecting to have a bike lane the entire length of Irving, because that's not true.
Correct.
Any bike lane on Irving, any leg is unacceptable. The street does not widen, it narrows. It's imbecilic. I'm at the point now that I can hardly contain myself with the inconsiderateness and the inequitable load in this community. And especially the fact that these streets that they are talking about are not commercial corridors. There is no commerce until you cross 14th Street on Irving, Columbia, Harvard, and Kenyon. So their proposal impacts residents who are already greatly impacted by the bad decisions that DDOT has made and the poor choices that they have made that impact so negatively on our commission. And so we cannot let them continue to do this. You see what they did to 14th Street. We are suffering the ramifications that we told them would occur. We told them that bike and dedicated lane would do nothing but create a worse traffic congestion. You have to go. Gigi's on the phone. Go talk to Papa. Sorry, guys. Great grandma duty too. But my point is that we can't just let them come up with a plan, because we know for a fact that every time DDOT has a plan, they implement it. It's not a plan. It's not a proposal. It's a project. From the moment they put it in their books, the moment they start talking about it, it no longer becomes a plan or a discussion. It is a certified project that's going to impact the lives of every single person who lives in our commission. So, no, I think we need to be much stronger in our conversations with them.
Well, and if I can pile on a little with Dottie, but also frame it as well. And I think we've all talked about this before. I think the biggest frustration is with perhaps DDOT and how DDOT communicates and how DDOT engages, right? Because the white elephant in the room that no one's wanting to talk about is, because they can't do anything about it, is that we live in one of the denser parts of the city, and we also happen to live in a part of the city that did not have the luxury of planning when it was constructed. I mean, if anyone wants to see what would happen if you let developers build without any rules, you just have to look at our neighborhood, because the L'Enfant plan didn't go north of Florida when our neighborhoods were constructed, and it didn't get imposed until it was time to start building out Ward 4. So we have streets that are angles and narrower and don't accommodate transportation needs and don't have the public right-of-ways that every other neighborhood around us has. And yet everyone needs to travel through our neighborhoods to get somewhere. And so, to Dottie's point, there is a burden. And it's an unfair burden that other neighborhoods don't get asked to support. That said, I think where my biggest frustration is with DDOT is that we understand this, and I don't think we are a commission of no. We're more of a commission of let's work with you and try to find some opportunities to make this work. And my frustration, if I can switch over to the meeting that's coming up on Thursday, is we have taken efforts to do surveys of neighbors to find out if perhaps a one-way street will work, or adding parking on a nearby street can help take the stress off of a bike lane project going up another street. Or if we can look at the plans from DDOT and make some tweaks to maybe get some, improve the tree canopy without losing the parking entirely based on the way it's laid out. And where I'm frustrated, because I think several of you on the meeting tonight saw this from a series of emails earlier, is when we're looking at the presentation materials for an upcoming meeting that's probably taken us about, well, easily a year to get DDOT to say that they would come out before us. And I look at their presentation materials and nothing has changed from what they're planning to present and talk about since before the last community meeting. So it's almost like all the feedback that we got from DDOT the last time we had a community meeting wasn't gathered, wasn't relayed, wasn't incorporated into the plans. And I mean, I don't really want to have a community meeting to talk to gather all the comments that we gathered at the last meeting, because nothing has changed in our plans.
That's exactly my problem with the whole thing, is that they don't listen. And no matter how many resolutions we write, how many emails we send, how many phone calls we have, how many meetings we are able to get them to come to, nothing changes. They make a decision and it's full speed ahead, residents be damned. And it's just, that's the fact. And I dare anyone to disprove it to me, to prove me wrong. Show me a single project that they have listened to our community, that we have fought them against, that they have heeded what we said and did not go headlong and do what they wanted to do anyhow, and then have to come back and undo it after they've created all of this happen.
And not to belabor the point, but I'll say that my frustration in what Kent and what Dottie have both said is that when we look at this north-south bike lane, which I generally support, but they want to focus entirely on the bike lane itself, when there are other things that we should and can do to make that whole stretch a lot better. And every project that they come to is very myopic. It's just this one little piece. I'm like, we have everything, as Commissioner Robichuk said, we have everything in 1A. So if you want to fix the street, let's fix the street, the whole street. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah, so those are kind of where I am, again, to Dottie and Michael and Zach, I think we've engaged time and time again and looked for win-win outcomes. I mean, we've really put in a lot of effort. I don't think we've ever been NIMBY. We've never said no. We've stood up in time and said this is a bad idea in certain instances, but we've always been looking for ways to improve and find a balance. And I don't honestly feel that at the very end, whoever is making the final decision really listens to it. I think we've had some good DDOT people over the years who've tried to accommodate and have tried to listen, but I just don't see real change in many of those plans when we find low-hanging fruit that actually makes it a win-win. And so that's a long way of me saying that. Thank you, Zach.
Well, thank you to you all, and we saw this last week at the Transportation Committee with the infamous jug handle that, once again, with the entire project team on the call, we flagged some issues with their final plans and we're told, well, we'll have to address that after construction. I will keep trying. I haven't given up yet. I know it's frustrating, but I appreciate everyone's support.
I will say before, it sounds like we're getting ready to maybe consider your letter. I just want to make sure that there aren't any outstanding questions or comments from commissioners. And of course, if there's a member of the community that has a question, this would be a good time for that as well. I know transportation is something that touches all of our lives. So I certainly want to provide space for any further understanding of what we're talking about. I see nothing. So is there a motion?
I move to support the letter to the Move DC project team.
I
Is there a
second.
Second.
Okay, moved, seconded, and thirded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Before we move to end the meeting, I would just like to thank you. I know Commissioner Clark, we're still waiting for results from you. Other than that, I would like to congratulate Commissioners Miller, Ray, Rabarchik, Bonneau, Love Wade, and I'm hoping, Clark, for your success in November, and that I'm honored to be serving with you again come January. I'm really kind of sad in a way that we don't have our departing commissioners on the call tonight, because I know that every single one of them has worked very hard and represented their communities well over the last term. And I think they should all be proud. I know they're proud of the work they've done. And I know that we're a pretty strong commission because of how well we work with each other. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. And hopefully, because we record these meetings, they can watch it later. But thank you all for making this a successful 2 years, and I look forward to working with everyone who's returning.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
No, I'd like to echo those exact sentiments and thank all of you for your hard work over the last 2 years, and to thank those departing commissioners and to welcome the new commissioners. I can't wait to meet them, probably just by phone or virtually for a while. But I can't wait to roll up my sleeves and begin my 23rd year.
Dottie, isn't there a plaque for
No.
after a certain
25 years.
don't you get a plaque? I swear I saw another commissioner who had done 22 terms and she had gotten a plaque for that.
No. No, I'm not interested. I do it for the service, not for the recognition.
Not for the plaque.
Nah. I got plaques in a box. I got so many of those things when I was working. I mean, not those things, but you know what I mean. It's just so many of them I got. Not bragging, but so many years of work to get them.
Yeah. All right. Well, just a reminder to those in the community who are on this call, ANC 1A does not meet in December. So our next meeting will be the second Wednesday of January, 2021.
Made an error on our agenda. I put 2020. We are not repeating 2020, 2021.
Although maybe that's not a bad idea. Let's just.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
No, I want a new 2020.
Yeah, it's 2021. It's version 202.1.
Yeah. Post-election.
All right. Is there a motion to end this meeting tonight?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of closing the November meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy
So at
holidays.
8:46, we bring the November meeting of ANC 1A to a close.
Be safe
Bye-bye.
and healthy.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
God bless everybody.